Today I'm going to go over a few of the features of Excel. It's a spreadsheet program, and you can use other spreadsheet programs. The Google Drive actually has a Google spreadsheet that you can use that is very powerful and it's free. And most of the things that I'm going to show you in Excel are able to be done in Google Drive. In some cases, the exact same way. In other cases, you may need to Google or try to figure out if there's something slightly different in how they handle the functions. But a spreadsheet is basically columns and rows. The columns are identified by letters and the rows are identified by numbers. And once you get some numbers or even text in your rows and columns, then there's a lot of really powerful things that you can do to summarize the numbers. You can add things up and you can do a lot of financial calculations. You can look at percentages, you can sort things, and you can even create charts. So you may have already done a lot with Excel, and I'm just going to go over some of the basics. So some of this may be a review, some of it may be new for some of you. So going through the handout that I have for you, basically we want to open a spreadsheet and we want to go ahead and save it. So this one I've already opened up and put some numbers in it. I have 10 numbers in 2 columns here, and I'm just going to do a save as. I'm just going to call it test, and I'll put it on my desktop for now so we can work with it. And I put 10 numbers in column A and 10 numbers in column B. Let's work with column A first. We want to do a sum. And we can always add each one of these up with a plus sign in between each one, but it's much easier to use the sum function. We start any sort of function or calculation with the equal sign, and then the name of the function, and then the range you would put in parentheses. And it's just very easy to grab and highlight the items that you want to have in the range. So if we take a look at this, we have equal sum, and then the range is A1 through A10, exactly what we want, and we'll enter that. So we now have the sum of all the 10 items here. And we can copy and paste that function from one column to another, making it very, very easy. We can do the Command C and Command V like we normally do when we're copy and pasting. But this little blue box here at the end has some magical powers that if we just drag it over, it's going to drag over the function. But notice that it's relative. Now it's saying we'll do the same thing, but do it from B1 through B10. So you'll get used to being able to do all these different types of functions and things that save you time, the shortcuts. So now we have sums in 2 columns. And the next thing we want to do is just do a little bit of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So we'll do that in C, D, E, and F. So the first thing we want to do is say equal. And again, we always start with an equal sign. Then I'm going to just move the cursor over to highlight A1. And then I'm going to hit plus. And I'm going to move the cursor over to highlight B1. So the function now, or the calculation, is A1 plus B1. And so that does the addition right here. And again, I can use this cool little blue box. You'll notice that the plus sign turns black when we're hovering over it. We can go all the way down to here. And so now the 2 columns are being added. And I can either bring this one over to have a sum of that column, or I could sum these up, or I could do both just to be sure that everything went right to double check it. So now we have the addition. Let's subtract each one in the same way. So we say equal A1 minus B1 and copy all those down. So we have the differences. We can multiply equal. The star is the multiplication symbol. And we can do all those all the way down. And then we can divide. We can say equal A1 divided by B1. And we can divide those all the way down. So right now we have a number, a numeric format here. There are different ways that we can change the formatting with these different tools up here, as well as with formatting up here, but we'll do some of those in a minute. So if you ever need to click an entire row, it's easy to do that by clicking on the number. It lets you select the entire row, or if you ever need to select the entire column, you can do that. Sometimes you need to do things where you're selecting and sorting or copying and pasting. So that's very easy to do. So we learned how to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, but we really don't want those things. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to delete all these items, and it's easy to get rid of all of them. I'm going to say edit, clear all. So all that stuff is gone now. What I really want to do is get the percentage of total for each one of these items here. So I want to say get the percentage that 25 is of 1205. So I would do that by saying equals 25. The divided sign is the slash. And then I'll click on the one that I want it to be divided by. So A1 divided by A11. So I'll hit that. And if I were to drag this down one, I get an error because what's it doing here? It's saying A2 divided by A12. It's trying to be relative. So that's not what we want here. I'm going to delete that because it's telling me there's an error. It's dividing it by 0, so that's a big error. What we want to do here is have the A11 stay the same and not change. Now we're going to do this again for B. So we want the B to change, but we don't want the 11 to change. We do that by putting a $ in here. And we can also do this by using Command T to toggle through all the different aspects of how we want to do the absolute positioning. So we know we just want it to be the 11. So if we copy this, the A will change to B, but the 11 will always stay in the same place. So hit enter. That should not have changed anything in the calculation. And while we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and format this as a percent so that when we copy it, the percent will come over. And if I want it to have additional decimal places, I can click this guy right here. So it's got 2 places now. So now when I copy this all the way down, I get the percentages for column A. And if I go here, I should get 100. Right there, because it's dividing by itself. It's A11 divided by A11. And now, magically, I should just be able to drag this over because the 11 is staying in place. And I'm getting the percentages for B. So B1 divided by B11, B2, B3, all the way down to this. So that's very nice, and it's very important to remember how to do those absolute references when you need them so that you can easily copy and paste things. So I've already formatted the cells. We want to put some labels here for this to be a little bit more meaningful. So we're going to go ahead and give these some categories. What I want to do first is insert a new row up here so that we can have this be, say, a year. Maybe it's 2012 and this is 2013, just so we have some labels. And then we want to insert another column, and we want each of these items to be something that we're measuring. Maybe it's revenue for certain types of fruit. So we'll say apples, oranges, strawberries, raspberries, kiwi, bananas, blueberries, and apricots, tangerine, and clementines. So now we have all these here. So let's sort this. Maybe we want to sort it by putting out categories in alphabetical order. That might be the first way that we would sort it. So we want to make sure we have everything selected first. That's probably the most important thing that when you're sorting. And we don't want it to sort the sum column here. So we want to be able to select just the items here that are going to be sorted, or even the entire rows. We can do that. We can pick all these rows. Notice when I click this little guy over here too, that selects everything in the spreadsheet. We don't want that right now. So I'm selecting these rows and I'm going to say data, sort, and notice it's asking me my list has headers, and it does. I want to make sure that it doesn't sort these 2012 and 2013s up here. I could have done it where I didn't select those 2 areas, and then I wouldn't have to check that. So we want to sort by whichever column we want, and if there was a heading in that column, that would be here. We want to sort on values, and we want to sort from A to Z. So it gives you all these options. So we say OK. And now we have the items in alphabetical order. Maybe we want to sort on the ones that is the largest in 2013. So I'm going to say data, sort, and I'm going to sort by 2013 values, and I want it to be largest to smallest. So just pay attention to all the things here. If you do it wrong, just do it again. And here we have, now it's sorted by the ones that have the highest in 2013. So strawberries were the highest in this particular list. So you can see how this is very, very powerful to be able to quickly sort and be able to start making sense of your data. So there are a lot of different functions in Excel that I want to cover next. And these are things that you can just try out. We might want to get a count of the numbers in a certain range. Maybe it's a very big spreadsheet and we don't have any idea. It's like maybe a section that's smack in the middle of the spreadsheet. Here, if I just say from B2 to B11 and count, of course we come up with 10, which is what we kind of expected. We can also do an average, so it's equal average. And we can get the average here. Maybe these are sales of fruits and thousands or something like that, or numbers of items sold. And we have median, so we can get the median of that same group. And we can get the max. So that's very helpful if you have a lot of items and you just want to quickly be able to find the max, especially if the data is changing. So the largest one was 457, and we can get the min, the minimum. So you can quickly be able to pull out the numbers that you need to be able to get and see. Sometimes you want to put those kinds of numbers in calculations. And there's some financial functions that are very, very powerful. We're not going to cover those in detail, but sometimes it's very important if you're trying to calculate some sort of a payment for an investment or for a purchase like a car. I'll show you how to do a payment. It's equal PMT. And you would put in the rate, and the rate is going to be based on the number of periods. So if we're looking at a month, so say you're taking out a car loan, it's 2.9%. So it'd be 0.029 divided by 12, because that's 12 periods per year, 12 months per year. Put a comma, the number of periods, so maybe it's a 60-month car loan, and then the present value of the car is $25,000. You should be able to get your payment of $448 per month. So it's really easy to be able to use this. You can do all sorts of things to look at different investment type functions. There are also some functions that are the same as what you would do if you were using something like SPSS. So you can do correlations and chi-squares and t-tests in Excel as well. ANOVA doesn't work in Excel anymore, so if you still need to do an analysis of variance calculation, you probably need to move into SPSS for that. That's used to test a significant of difference amongst more than two groups. Okay, so now we're going to work with some existing data. I have here some data, this hot dog places that I found from Flowing Data, and I have a link to it on the handout. So if I just do File, Save Page As, it will allow me to save this. Let me save this to my desktop. And then I'll have this CSV, and this is the Nathan's hot dog eating contest and the years and the number of hot dogs people ate over those years. So now I want to open this up in Excel, and I'll do it in a new workbook. Notice that you can also add sheets within a workbook. I'll talk about that in a second, but let's do a new workbook since this is a new project. And I'm going to open the CSV. So Excel can read CSVs. It can read a lot of different types of files, more than just Excel files. But you have to be able to change this to what it is. So I just want it to be able to find all files. So when I switch it to all files, it says hot dog places. And I can open it up. And it goes ahead and it opens that as a CSV into the rows and the columns that it needs to be. Sometimes when you're importing a CSV into Excel, it might ask you some questions about how the file is delimited, and just answer those questions. And gives you a little WYSIWYG editor to see if it's tab separated or column or comma separated. It might take a few tries to get it in, but you can see that the data is coming in properly. So we've saved the file, and we can actually label and sum everything that we did to the rows here. So we've got first place, second place, and third place, and we've got the year. So if I want to insert the cell column, And this would just be first, second, third. And then we can do things with this data if we wanted to sum it, if we wanted to do percentages, anything like that that we wanted to do. But for this, I want to actually do some charting. So we want to use Excel to chart the number of hot dogs per year. And I want to put them on some sort of a column chart up and down. And I want to stack the bars on top of each other. So sometimes it just might take a few times to try it. The first thing to do is just highlight your whole area and then come over to the charts and pick the type of chart that you want. And I'm going to do a 2D stacked column chart. And let it put it in here. So this is pretty nice. We've got all the years, and this shows very clearly that there were certain years where people consumed more hot dogs than others. What's a little problematic here is it's hard to compare the individual ones. It's easy to compare the first place ones, but we wouldn't necessarily know if second or third place had gone up. But this is a really good way to show the total number of hot dogs eaten in each year. So you can now format it. We need to adjust the series, and we might need to adjust the x-axis values. So if we go under chart, source data, we can change all those things here that we want to change. It allows you to change the series if you want to. You can add a series if it's something else. You can change the names of where this is coming from. You can change the y values and the x-axis values. So we've got those years. We've got the values on the side. We can also do things like if we come over here and we format the axis. So I just did a right click on the axis. I can change the maximum and minimum. And I can format these labels. So I'm going to say add data labels. I want the numbers to actually be there for each one. And we can format the data labels and the numbers, and there's all kinds of things that you can do to make this chart more meaningful. And then the next thing we want to do is to be able to change the chart layout, like put some titles and things on it. So if we click over here, when we have the chart selected, we can add a chart title above. So we can say hot dog championship. And we can do axis titles if we want to do the horizontal axis title, which would be years, and the vertical axis title, however we want to do this. Let's do it vertical, number of dogs. And there's different ways that we can actually change that around if we want to. Rotates it or puts a horizontal. We want it like that, number of dogs. And just figure out what's the best way to do it, and you can change the size by dragging it from the corner. So another thing that you can do with the chart is, this is embedded on the page, but there's also a way to make the chart its own sheet, and then it would end up as a sheet down at the bottom, but still referencing the data from the original chart over here. So you could have many of those. And this is often the way that I do it. So that's a little bit about charting. You'll have to play with your charts. There's really nothing you can't do with the charts. So you just have to play with all these features that are under charts and chart layout and format so that you can find exactly the right presentation that you want for your data. For instance, if we wanted to change this chart type to a column chart, but that does not have it stacked, just a clustered column chart, I change it to that, and now it might be a little easier to compare these red ones and see which years the second place was the highest and if there was a difference. And it's easier to tell the difference between first and second place, whereas in 2000 they were all really, really close. In other years, the first place just kind of took off. So different ways of presentation of the data have different ramifications for what you're looking at. So I mentioned you can save data in multiple worksheets, so I could insert a sheet, I can have a whole bunch more data here, and I can still reference data from other sheets. If I just wanted to reference something that was on the first chart, the first sheet in hot dog places, I just say equal. I can switch to that and click on it and hit enter, and now it's referencing that from the hot dog places sheet. And so you can have very powerful interaction between spreadsheets if you need to. Another thing I can show you is that if you want to quickly number columns, just kind of start numbering them. And then if we copy this, instead of just copying 1 or 2, it's going to give you a numeric number. And it'll do that no matter what the jump is, the difference is. So if I say 1, 5, then it should add 4 to each one. If I highlight them both and then come down here like that, so it adds the difference to each one. Sometimes you want to copy formulas and sometimes you want to copy their values. So if I go back to the original workbook that we're working on, test, in each one of these we have formulas. So if we copy and paste this somewhere else in the sheet, we may end up with errors. So we have all these errors over here. So I'm going to undo this. Maybe we just want the numbers. So I'm going to copy, maybe we need those in another sheet. And I'm going to copy them over here to this other sheet. And I'm going to say paste special. And you can say you just want the values to come over. You can pick anything that you actually want them to do. And so now we have the values coming over. Of course, we can format them, make them anything we want at this point. You can also use if statements, very powerful. If we just want to find which ones of these reach a certain criteria, like maybe they're greater than 100 units, we can do an if statement. So it's equal if, and then we want to do what the condition is. So if we want to say if B, well, let's do C, we'll do 2013. If C2 is greater than 100, then we want it to say yes, and any text we want to put into a quotation mark. And if not, no. Also in quotation marks. So just like we do when we've done programming, it's an if statement. Let's see if this works. So that one says yes. The rest of these should say no. Yeah. Let's say if it's just greater than 1, because we do have 1 down there that is negative. So these are all yes, and that one is no. So very powerful ways of looking at data that you can make decisions and basically get information out of that.